Ever wonder why your dishwasher suddenly costs $300 more, or why a bag of groceries feels lighter while your bill keeps climbing? It's not just inflation. A new wave of tariffs and tangled global supply chains are quietly pushing prices higher on everything from fresh tomatoes to the appliances in your kitchen. These hidden costs are adding up fast, and most families don't even realize who's paying the real price until they check out at the register. Prices across America are climbing again, and this time the surge feels different. Walk into any grocery store and you'll notice the quiet shock of a simple grocery bill. Bread, milk, and fresh produce cost noticeably more than they did just a few months ago. Over in the appliance aisle, a mid-range dishwasher that used to sell for $700 is now closer to $1,000. According to the June 2025 Consumer Price Index report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the food-at-home category rose by 0.3% in just 1 month and is now 2.4% higher compared to the same period last year. Meanwhile, household furnishings and operations, which includes major appliances, spiked 1% in June, marking the sharpest monthly increase since the pandemic years of 2020. The pattern is not isolated to one category. The U.S. Department of Agriculture recently forecast that overall food prices will rise by nearly 3% in 2025, with meals at home climbing by roughly 2.2%. Eating out is expected to become even more expensive, with prices up 3.9%. For middle-class families who spend hundreds each month on groceries, this means budgeting is tighter, and even routine trips to the store feel like a small financial shock. In Indiana, for example, families report that a monthly grocery bill that once hovered around $500 is now closer to $700. On the appliance front, industry reports show similar pressure. Data from Yale Appliances' 2025 report points out that tariffs and raw material costs are pushing manufacturers to raise prices on large appliances. The Producer Price Index for electrical equipment and appliance manufacturing climbed 0.69% in June alone and 4.57% year over year. Retail analysts note that prices for dishwashers, refrigerators, and washing machines have increased 3 months in a row. June recorded the highest monthly jump since the start of 2020. The reason for this price climb lies partly in recent tariff policies. The Trump administration's second-term trade strategy has reintroduced high import taxes on steel, aluminum, and a wide array of goods from China. A 50% tariff on steel and aluminum, extended to major appliances as of late June 2025, has directly raised manufacturing costs. When combined with existing tariffs on imported electronics and components, these costs trickle down to the consumer in the form of higher price tags. Even a small shift, like a 10% tariff increase on a specific component, can add $100 or more to the final price of a large appliance. The impact isn't limited to household gadgets. Grocery prices are also caught in the crossfire. Tomatoes imported from Mexico are now facing a 17% tariff, and similar levies are affecting a range of fresh produce and essential items. According to Time magazine, this single change is expected to raise the price of imported tomatoes significantly, forcing restaurants and households alike to pay more for a simple pasta sauce or salad. Walmart and Amazon have already adjusted their pricing, with Amazon increasing prices on over 1,200 essential products earlier this year due to higher import costs. Retail giants like Walmart have publicly acknowledged the squeeze. In a statement, Walmart's CEO Doug McMillon hinted that tariffs are impacting products in ways customers can feel, particularly for imported kitchenware, electronics, and household staples. Amazon has made similar remarks, noting that many of the price hikes are not driven by retailers, but by higher costs at the production and shipping level. Meanwhile, supply chain disruptions continue to play their part. Logistics companies are reporting delays and increased costs for importing goods, partly due to ongoing global shipping bottlenecks and geopolitical tensions. The Red Sea shipping crisis and rerouting of major container ships have added weeks of delays and higher freight costs, which eventually land on the US consumer's plate or in their shopping cart. The numbers are clear, and so is the sentiment on the ground. Across states like Ohio, Texas, and Florida, small appliance store owners are reporting customers walking away from purchases because the price is simply too high. For consumers, the invisible tax of tariffs and disrupted supply chains feels like an unavoidable hit to the wallet. It's not just inflation anymore. It's a layered price shock that touches every corner of daily life, from the groceries on the table to the appliances in the kitchen. The sudden surge in prices for groceries and appliances is not a simple case of inflation running its course. At its core, this trend is being driven by a combination of renewed trade tariffs, rising raw material costs, and fragile supply chains that have not fully recovered from years of global disruptions. These forces, acting simultaneously, are magnifying price increases across everyday essentials and big-ticket household items. A key factor is the new wave of tariffs introduced in early 2025. The Trump administration's trade policy has shifted back to aggressive protectionism, with hefty import duties targeting steel, aluminum, and electronics from key manufacturing hubs such as China. A 50% tariff on steel and aluminum, both critical components in appliances like dishwashers and refrigerators, was expanded in June to cover major home appliances. This move alone added hundreds of dollars to production costs for manufacturers, who have little choice but to pass these increases on to consumers. A dishwasher that once had a manufacturer's cost of $500 can now easily cost $600 or more to produce, translating into a retail price hike of $200 to $300. Tariffs on imported agricultural goods are another driver. Fresh produce, such as tomatoes and avocados from Mexico, is now subject to a 17% tariff. These are not luxury goods, they're staples in American households and restaurant kitchens. A simple pasta sauce or guacamole now costs more to make, which explains why restaurant prices are rising alongside grocery store bills. According to the USDA, the price of fresh vegetables is expected to rise nearly 4% by the end of 2025, a direct reflection of these added costs. Supply chain dynamics amplify the pressure. Global shipping routes are still grappling with instability caused by geopolitical conflicts and lingering pandemic-era bottlenecks. The Red Sea and Suez Canal crises in late 2024 forced cargo ships to reroute through longer and more expensive paths, increasing freight costs by up to 20% in some cases. While these disruptions might sound distant from American households, they play a crucial role in determining the final price of goods on store shelves. Every added shipping fee, delay, and logistical complication translates into higher costs for importers, retailers, and ultimately, consumers. Adding to the complexity is the rising cost of raw materials. Aluminum and copper prices have been climbing due to higher global demand and reduced mining output in South America and Africa. Semiconductor shortages, though less severe than in 2021, are still affecting appliance manufacturers. Components like control boards and sensors are priced higher due to both tariffs and lingering supply constraints. This creates a cascade effect. When the cost of a single component rises, the entire product price moves up, often disproportionately. Businesses have also shifted pricing strategies in anticipation of these pressures. Companies like Amazon and Walmart began adjusting their pricing earlier in 2025, ahead of the tariff hikes. According to a Wall Street Journal report, Amazon raised prices on over 1,200 household essentials, citing higher import and operational costs. Retailers are not simply reacting to current price shifts, but proactively raising prices to prepare for the next wave of cost increases. This preemptive approach means that consumers are paying more now for price shocks that might still be months away. Economic policy choices play a significant role as well. While tariffs are designed to protect domestic industries by making foreign goods more expensive, they often fail to shield consumers from rising costs. In theory, higher tariffs should encourage more domestic manufacturing, but building out these capabilities takes years, not months. In the meantime, American households are caught in a price squeeze. According to the Federal Reserve's Beige Book, businesses have warned that these tariffs could add 0.3 to 0.5 percentage points to inflation in the second half of 2025, effectively undoing much of the progress made in stabilizing prices since 2023. Psychological factors also matter. Consumers are becoming increasingly price-sensitive as they notice their bills creeping up. Retailers, aware of this shift, are employing tactics like shrinkflation, where package sizes are reduced while prices remain the same or even increase. A box of cereal that used to weigh 14 ounces might now be only 12 ounces, yet the price stays unchanged. These invisible adjustments make the price hikes less noticeable on the surface, but contribute to a sense that money no longer stretches as far as it once did. The convergence of tariffs, supply chain stress, raw material inflation, and corporate pricing strategies explains why Americans are feeling this squeeze now. It's not a single factor, but rather an overlapping series of economic and policy decisions that have created this perfect storm. And as more tariffs are slated to come into effect in the fall of 2025, targeting additional electronics and imported consumer goods, the upward pressure on prices may not slow down anytime soon. The impact of rising prices is not evenly distributed across the United States. While wealthy households may absorb the increases with minor adjustments, middle and working class families are feeling the strain more acutely. Every additional $50 on a grocery bill or $200 on an appliance purchase represents a heavier financial burden for those already living paycheck to paycheck. The latest data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics highlights that essential categories, food, energy, and household goods, are outpacing wage growth for a significant segment of the population. In Middle America, families are reporting their monthly grocery expenses climbing from around $500 to $700 or more. For a household earning $40,000 to $50,000 annually, this extra $2,000 per year in food costs is enough to disrupt savings plans or push credit card balances higher. According to a July 2025 survey by LendingTree, over 60% of consumers say they have relied on credit to cover basic living expenses in the past 6 months, a trend that is directly tied to rising prices for staples like milk, bread, and fresh vegetables. Lower-income families are hit the hardest. The USDA's latest data shows that the share of income spent on food for the bottom 20% of earners has risen from 32% in 2019 to nearly 38% in mid-2025. This shift leaves less room for other necessities like transportation, healthcare, and education. For single parents or those working hourly jobs, an unexpected jump in appliance prices, like a broken refrigerator that now costs $300 more, can lead to difficult trade-offs, such as postponing repairs or relying on high-interest financing. Rural and suburban communities, where appliance replacement is more common due to older housing stock, are particularly vulnerable. Independent appliance retailers in Ohio and Michigan report customers walking away from purchases that they would have made just a year ago. One store owner in Toledo told the Associated Press, "People come in looking for a new washing machine, but when they see the price tags, they either delay the purchase or try to fix an old model that's on its last leg." These stories are echoed in states like Texas, where local hardware shops have seen a sharp decline in sales of mid-range appliances since May. Urban renters are also feeling the pinch indirectly. Landlords who face higher costs for appliance replacements or building maintenance are passing these expenses down through rent increases. In cities such as New York and Los Angeles, tenants have reported surcharges for in-unit repairs or upgrades that previously would have been included as part of normal maintenance. Rising costs of goods ripple through every layer of the economy, and for renters, the effect often appears in the form of higher monthly payments rather than a direct increase at the store. The restaurant and hospitality industries are also caught in this cycle. With tariffs raising the cost of imported ingredients, restaurant owners face a dilemma: absorb the higher costs or pass them on to customers. Most choose the latter. A mid-sized restaurant in Chicago reported its wholesale tomato costs rising by nearly 15% since April due to new tariffs on Mexican produce. As a result, menu prices for pasta dishes and salads are climbing, which can discourage dining out, impacting both businesses and consumers. Even small businesses and contractors are affected. Companies that rely on imported components, such as electrical wiring or steel frames, are seeing material costs spike due to the 50% tariff on steel and aluminum. This directly affects industries from construction to home improvement services. A contractor in Florida explained in a local news interview that every job quote now has to factor in the higher cost of materials, and customers are noticing that a kitchen remodel costs several $1,000s more than it did last year. The chain reaction goes deeper than household spending. As consumers cut back on discretionary purchases to offset higher grocery and utility bills, sectors like retail, apparel, and entertainment are beginning to see slower sales. Target and Macy's have both issued cautious forecasts for the second half of 2025, citing reduced consumer demand. Meanwhile, credit card delinquencies are inching higher as families juggle increasing costs without comparable wage growth. For retirees and fixed-income households, the pressure is even more intense. Social Security cost of living adjustments are trailing behind real price increases, meaning that seniors are effectively losing purchasing power month after month. A retiree in Arizona recently told NPR, "I used to budget carefully, but now, even the basics like eggs and milk cost so much that I'm dipping into my savings more often than I'd like. It feels like everything is just getting out of reach." From rural households to urban renters, from small business owners to retirees, the ripple effects of tariffs and supply chain challenges are shaping daily life in tangible ways. The financial pain is not confined to any one group. It is layered across income levels and regions, though its intensity is magnified for those least able to absorb sudden price shocks. Behind the statistics and economic charts are the real voices of Americans who are navigating this relentless price surge. Their stories reveal not only the financial strain, but also the quiet frustration building across communities. In states like Ohio and Michigan, small appliance store owners describe scenes where customers stare at price tags with disbelief. A mid-range dishwasher that was $699 is now $999, says James Carter, who runs a family-owned appliance shop in Columbus. "I see people doing the math on their phones, comparing store credit offers, and then walking out. They just can't justify it anymore." The sentiment is similar among grocery shoppers. Emily Dawson, a mother of two from Indiana, shared with a local news station how her grocery bill jumped from $500 a month to nearly $700 in less than 6 months. "We've cut out snacks, sodas, and even certain meats just to stay within budget," she said. "But it feels like we're still spending more for less food. I go home with fewer bags than before." This feeling, paying more while getting less, is a common refrain. Shrinkflation, where package sizes are reduced but prices stay the same, is adding to the sense that everyday essentials are slipping out of reach. Business owners are also speaking out. Doug McMillon, CEO of Walmart, recently addressed the impact of tariffs during an earnings call, stating, "We're seeing higher costs on imports that are not easily absorbed. It's a challenge to keep prices low for our customers when upstream costs keep rising." At Amazon, executives have noted that many price increases are driven by manufacturing costs rather than retail markups. A spokesperson told the Wall Street Journal, "Our vendors and suppliers are under immense pressure from tariffs and material costs, and we're trying to balance customer affordability with the reality of higher costs across the supply chain." Restaurant owners are grappling with similar problems. In Chicago, Marco Ramirez, who runs a mid-sized Italian restaurant, explained how tariffs on imported tomatoes and other produce are forcing menu changes. "We used to buy crates of fresh tomatoes from Mexico at a decent price. Now they cost 15% more, and that's on top of higher labor and energy costs. I've had to raise prices on pasta dishes, and customers are noticing. It's either that or serve lower quality ingredients, which I won't do." For small eateries and family-owned restaurants, these cost hikes come at a time when consumer dining budgets are already under pressure. In rural areas, the narrative is equally challenging. Linda Rowe, a retiree in West Virginia, expressed how rising food prices are cutting into her fixed Social Security income. "Every trip to the grocery store is like a budgeting exercise," she told NPR. "Eggs used to be $2.50 a dozen, now they're closer to $4 than that. And when you're living on a fixed income, those little changes add up quickly. I've started skipping certain meals just to make things stretch." Seniors across the country are feeling this squeeze as cost of living adjustments fail to match the pace of inflation in critical categories like groceries and household goods. Truckers and logistics workers who sit at the heart of supply chain disruptions are noticing the changes firsthand. Michael Harris, a truck driver from Texas, mentioned that shipping schedules and costs have been unpredictable due to the ongoing rerouting of cargo ships around global trouble zones. When shipping is delayed or costs go up, that hits everything we transport, he said. It's not just the cost of gas, it's the entire logistics chain that's breaking the budget for companies, and that trickles down to what people pay in stores. The emotional tone across these conversations is one of quiet exhaustion rather than outrage. People understand that global events and policy decisions play a role, but they still feel powerless. A recent poll by Morning Consult found that over 70% of Americans believe tariffs and supply chain issues are partly to blame for higher prices, yet most say they don't fully understand how these policies impact their daily lives. This confusion adds to the frustration. As Emily Dawson put it, "I just want to know why it feels like my paycheck is shrinking, even though I'm working the same hours. It's like an invisible hand is taking money out of my wallet." These personal stories bring the statistics to life. It's not just a 2.4% year-over-year increase in the food at home index, it's a single mother choosing between fresh produce and paying the electric bill. It's a restaurant owner deciding whether to raise menu prices or eat the cost of imported ingredients. And it's a retiree counting coins to cover basics that once fit easily into a monthly budget. The economic narrative of 2025 is being written in real time by people on the ground who are living with the fallout of policy shifts and global supply chain challenges. The surge in prices for groceries and appliances is not simply a passing inconvenience. It feels like a turning point in how American families budget, spend, and think about the future. We are in a moment where every dollar is scrutinized, every purchase is questioned, and the value of basic goods has become a topic of dinner-table debate. The question is no longer whether prices are rising. The question is how long this wave will last and who will bear the brunt of its impact. Economists warn that tariffs and global supply chain pressures are far from temporary. The Federal Reserve's Beige Book notes that many businesses expect costs to remain elevated well into 2026, especially as tariffs on additional categories of goods are set to roll out later this year. These tariffs, designed to protect domestic manufacturing, might ultimately reshuffle global supply lines, but in the short term they act as a direct tax on consumers. For families who have already adjusted to 2 years of elevated inflation, this feels like another round of financial fatigue. The broader economy is already reflecting the stress. Credit card balances are climbing, with average household credit debt surpassing $7,000 according to recent Federal Reserve data. Retailers like Macy's and Target are forecasting slower sales for the second half of 2025, citing consumer pullback on discretionary spending. Restaurant traffic is declining in many mid-tier markets as diners cut back on eating out, a habit often among the first to go when household budgets tighten. These shifts suggest that price increases are not just influencing what Americans buy, but how they live. At the same time, the outlook remains uncertain. Could domestic manufacturing step up to fill the gaps and bring prices down? Possibly, but that transition takes time and significant investment. Could tariffs be rolled back if public pressure mounts? History suggests that trade policies rarely change overnight, and while wages have risen modestly in some sectors, they have not kept pace with the combined pressure of higher food costs, elevated rent, and climbing energy bills. For consumers, the challenge is not just about navigating today's higher costs, it's about adjusting to a new normal where the price of essentials is no longer predictable. This unpredictability creates anxiety. As one shopper in Texas recently told a local news station, "I feel like I can't plan ahead anymore. Last month it was eggs and milk. This month it's the price of chicken and a dishwasher we can't afford to replace. What's next?" This question lingers across the economy. Will 2025 mark the start of a longer cycle where tariffs and global conflicts reshape the cost of living for everyone? Or is this just a peak moment before stabilization? No one can answer with certainty. What is clear is that these changes are reshaping habits. People are buying less, waiting longer to replace appliances, and prioritizing essentials over extras. As the summer of 2025 unfolds, the story of rising prices feels less like a headline and more like a permanent shift in American life. Families are learning to adapt, but the cost of that adaptation is high, both financially and emotionally. And so, we are left with a larger, unsettling question. If the price of something as ordinary as a dishwasher can jump by $300 overnight, what does that say about the stability of everything else we take for granted? And that's where we leave it for now. The price hikes on groceries and appliances aren't just numbers on a chart. They're shaping how families live, spend, and plan for the future. As tariffs bite deeper and supply chains continue to shift, we'll keep asking the tough questions. Are these costs temporary, or are they becoming the new normal? Thank you for listening. If this episode made you rethink your own grocery bill or that appliance upgrade you've been putting off, share it with a friend and let us know your thoughts. Stay tuned for our next deep dive into the stories that are shaping everyday life in America.